This video is about compression moulding, which is probably the most important moulding process for manufacturing with thermosetting plastics as opposed to thermoplastics, which I've discussed in many of the other videos. Now, the process uses a combination of heat, pressure and time to ensure that cross links, which is the fixing of long chain molecules within the polymer, can occur. Now, this is where the process or the material varies from thermosetting plastics to thermoplastics, because in this process, once these cross links are formed, it means that the polymer is permanently in that state. It can't be remolded, softened and reformed. Now, the stages of the process begin with a preformed slug, or charge as it's sometimes called, of compressed thermosetting powder being placed between the two mould halves. This slug, or charge as it's sometimes called, needs to be very accurately weighed, because obviously you cannot recycle the plastic after the process has occurred, and it's quite difficult or quite labour intensive if you need to remove the excess material, which is sometimes called flash, after the process has occurred. So once the slug is placed between the two mould halves, the mould is heated to a temperature that will allow these cross links to form within the material. The mould is then closed onto the preform, and the pressure and forces out any excess material, or flash as I discussed. The moulds are then held under this pressure and the required temperature to ensure that all the material is cured and all of the cross links are formed, making the product. When the mould is opened again, the product can be ejected while it's still hot, so it doesn't have to be cooled as in some processes, and the process can then begin again with a new preformed slug. Now, the advantage of this obviously are moderately complex parts can be produced over quite long production runs, and although there is heavy machinery involved, such as the hydraulic rams that create the force required for the crosslinks to form, the startup costs are relatively low, as the moulds can be less expensive than those used in injection moulding, for example. In addition, providing the slug is correctly weighed, there's very little waste material. Now, the difficulties with this process is it's obviously necessary to manufacture the preforms, and it's quite restricted in terms of the level of complexity required for the overall products.